Hi everybody, Carol here at Oak House Journals, and a very warm welcome from me, and thank you for joining me today. So I'm going to have another go at trying to do a decent video for you of these crocheted buttons that I've been using to embellish some of my projects recently. First of all, may I say a massive apology to everybody that got totally confused by my previous video. I'm so sorry, I really shouldn't have posted it. I thought there was enough in frame for you to be able to get the gist of what I was doing, so apologies for that, and I am hoping that I can do substantially better or markedly better in this tutorial for you. So these are what I've been creating recently, and they are just buttons that I've crocheted round, and I will be covering in a second what buttons you should use, what threads you should use, what needles you should use. But just to start with, this is to show you the different types of embellishment you can do on your buttons. So this one has got a double ruffle round it, she says, and the first thing I do is be off screen for you. Sorry. Okay, so this one has got a double ruffle. You've got the back layer and then an inner layer. This one is just a single layer, and there is no decorative edge round the outside, and I've left it to curl in slightly so that it kind of encases the vintage button that I've used there. This one is a single layered button, but I've put a slight edge on it. I've kind of done a little picot edge on the end there with a different stitch, just to give it a little bit more of an embellishment. And then this one again is a double ruffle, but this time I've put a smaller button in the middle so you can see the spokes on this one. Now if I compare that with this one you can't see the spokes. The button hides the centre part of the crocheted button behind it. So put the two up together, whoops-a-daisy, there you can see. And actually I have to say I prefer that one a lot better. Okay, so that is how I've been using them. There's 101 ways you can use these little embellishments, but that's how I've been using mine recently on my fabric tags. So let me just move these to one side and pull in some of the buttons that I have been crocheting, just to give you an idea without the backings there to confuse. So that is just a plain single 4-hole button with a single edge or a single circle round the button. So there's no fancy edging on this one. And this one here actually has got an edging to it. You can probably just pick it up. It's just very, very fine. And all I've done my edging here, and then I've just done something right on the very edge there, and I will show you how to do that. These are all progressive, these buttons, so this would be the first stage and you could stop there. Then this one would be the second stage, where you put the edging round the edge here, and you could probably see that edging a little bit better on this one. It's more marked round the outside, it's not as smooth. So this would be your second layer, if you will, and this is another example of that. And similarly this one. Or you can go on and you can add another layer. As you can see, there's another layer there, and even a third layer if you wish. So this one actually has 3 layers. It's got one here, and then this inside one. And I've covered up the spokes by just putting a little trim of lace in the centre of that one. So there, if I turn it sideways, you can pick up the 3 layers like so. Now, what your button looks like in the center really is dictated by what button you use. So for this little guy here, my holes in the 4 holes in the center of the button are fairly close together, whereas this one, they're quite wide apart. If I just turn that a little sideways, this is a transparent button. Maybe if I put it down on the mat there, no better. This is a transparent button and the holes are quite far apart. This one is a slightly opaque button, that's the reverse, and the holes are slightly closer together. And I like the look better when the 4 holes in your button are nearer the center of your button. But don't panic, because even if you have a button like this one and you don't like that spoke arrangement, you can always do this. You can always put a piece of lace in the center to hide it, or as I did on all of these, you can put a button in the middle and put a button on top of your crocheted button and hide this center portion completely. Okay, so let's move on and choose our buttons. So here I've got just a random selection of buttons from my stash. Now, when I did my crocheted flowers, I tended to work with buttons that were around this size, which is about between 1 centimetre and 1.5. I tended to find that mine were coming out at about 1.3 or 1.4 of a centimetre, so about 13 millimetres. And for me, that was the perfect size to work with. I would suggest that you don't go with anything smaller like these, unless you want a bit of a challenge. These are going to be less than 1 centimetre, I know just by glancing at them. And they will give you a challenge, still doable, but I would suggest for your first button, you try something that's bigger. Say something like that, that's probably about 1.8 of a centimetre. That is probably over 2 centimetres. So I would practice, do your first one on a big button. The smaller, as I say, you can go smaller, but remember that the smaller you go, the thinner your crochet hook needs to be and the finer your crochet cotton needs to be. And I will cover that in just a moment. The other thing I will say to you is, I haven't tried it with 2-hole buttons, but I would suspect that it's not particularly going to work, for the simple reason that you are actually putting a lot more stitches into your holes to get them to stretch round to the next hole. So I would suspect that they aren't going to work with 2-hole buttons, but if somebody wants to give that a try and let me know, that would be absolutely wonderful. It doesn't, in terms of what buttons you use, you can use any button. The colour doesn't matter. I tended, when I first started playing with these, the reason I played with them was because I had some horrible clear buttons like this, just resin buttons. They were old ones, but I was never going to use them on a project. So I was looking at a way to cover them, and I decided I'd have a go at crocheting them, as you do. But you can use any colour you want, but remember that the button will not be covered completely by your stitches. So for example, if I was doing that one, then, well, no, not this particular button because it's only got 2 holes in, but if that was a 4-hole button, it's a wooden button, I would probably choose to go with an ecru or white crochet thread on that and marry it up with a project of a similar colourway. If you went for a pale pink button, it would be nice to crochet over the top with a pale pink. Before I move on, I did crochet a washer Now this is one that I crocheted with a ruffle inside. Now the washers are slightly easier to do because you're not faffing with the number of stitches to get in 4 holes, and you're just going into the 1 hole. Now this washer in size was 13 millimeters again. Now you could go smaller for the simple reason that your crochet hook is going through that center hole and has got plenty of room to go through, so you're not restricted by the size of your crochet hook. You are also not restricted by the size of your crochet thread, although I think that finer is better. I used a metal washer for the simple reason that, like here, I just happen to have one lying around in amongst my buttons for some reason, and this is obviously a much smaller one. So I started crocheting my washer. Now these are just bog standard washers that you would find in a DIY shop. They're made of steel, and as I commented previously, I don't know how these would hold up in a hot climate where there's humidity, whether they would rust or not. But one of my lovely subbies, thank you so much, gave me the idea, or reminded me rather, that you can buy plastic washers, and obviously the rust situation wouldn't happen with them. Now I have tried over the last couple of days to find some plastic ones here in the UK, but it's a little bit difficult at the moment with lockdown, and I can't really traipse around DIY stores to have a look. So it's up to you whether or not you want to have a go with washers and try those. Okay, so on to crochet threads. So I'm just going to clear all these buttons away, and I will come back to you with a comment or two about the crochet threads that we're going to use. Okay, so these are just some crochet cottons or threads that I had in my stash, and as you can see, I use hairbands to secure everything in my craft room. Now the white, and the pink are Coats Mercer crochet cotton, and the thread size is 40. Now I would suggest that this size is absolutely perfect for what you want if you are using button sizes round about 13 to 15 millimeters. If you have a bigger button, you could probably get away with Coats Mercer crochet cotton 20, which is what this one is, and it's double the size. Or if you are going for fine and delicate, and you're going to give a button that is smaller than let's see if I can find one in this little pot. If you are going for one kind of this size, which is an 8 millimeter button, you are going to want a much finer thread. So you are probably going to need something like this ecru thread that I've got here, which looks quite big on the camera. Woo! But it is a 50, a Coats Mercer crochet cotton in a size 50. It might actually even be a 60. So really that's the best guidance I can give you on your crochet cottons. Basically what governs the size of crochet cotton you use is the size of your button, because of the size of the hole really, and that is also the case for what crochet hooks you use. Now this crochet hook here is a 1.75, and I would use that quite comfortably with this larger 20 crochet cotton, because the hook end obviously holds your thread quite comfortably. But that is no good for this button. It's never in a million years going to go through those holes. So you obviously need something a lot finer. Now what I've been working with is a number 4 crochet hook, which if you can see there, is very, very fine. Now that number 4 crochet hook will take the size 40 crochet cotton perfectly. As you can see, it does catch it nice and easily, and it will go through. I have found all my buttons that are 1 centimetre to 1.5 and larger. It goes through quite comfortably, so I'm going to hold that like so. As you can see, it goes through, and I've got a good inch on the other side. So that is the one I have been using for my 40 threads and finer. I also have here a 1.25 crochet hook, which is even finer, and as you can see, that goes through perfectly as well. So in terms of your hooks, it is whatever you can find in terms of size that will go through the button that you want to crochet, and you need to get it to go through about certainly 3/4 of an inch. If you can get it to go through an inch, that's even better. So that's the best I can suggest for how you work out what size crochet hook you want. And similarly with your threads, it all depends on the size of button that you are going to use. But again, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating this too much, I would suggest for this size button, which is a 13mm, you want 40 crochet cotton or finer. So you want a 50 or a 60. 40 is absolutely perfect. The 20 I would say would be too thick to do it, but I will be working with a 20 in a moment to show you how to do these. Okay, on to the next, everybody. So we're good to go now. We have our thread here, and we have our crochet hook, and I had a chuckle this morning because I came across the perfect button to demonstrate what I'm doing with you this morning, and this is a 4-hole 2-inch button. And if I show you that button against the size of button that I was advocating us to use, you can see there is a massive difference, but I thought that would give me the best chance of trying to show you what to do today. So as always, to start off your crocheting, do a slip knot. So I've just done one of those, and I'm just going to pick up my thread. Okay, so now what you want to do, you want to have your crochet hook in front of your button, and you want to go through from the front to the back of your button, and then the thread that is on your ball of crochet yarn, you want to take that from the front of the button round to the back and let your crochet hook catch it like so, and bring a loop of it through to the front of your button, and then you want to work it just very loosely up to the top edge of your button. Now if I hold that carefully there and separate it, you will see that I have 2 loops on my button. This is my slip knot, and this is the thread that I've brought through from the back. So this is the thread there, and this is the slip knot. Okay, now keeping your hook at the top of your button like so, you have got your thread now going through the back of the button. So what you want to do now is yarn over with that thread, and you then want to take it through those 2 loops like so. Okay, so you have your stitch on the top, and you have 2 threads going from the back through to the front of your button like so. Okay, so I'm just going to do that again for you. So where's my slip knot? Here's my slip knot, I'm taking my crochet hook from the front of my button through to the back. My thread, I'm just taking round the back of my button, and I'm letting my crochet hook catch it. I'm pulling it back through my button and just letting it come to the top of my button. So as I said before, you have your slip knot. Let me just try and separate that for you. There we go. You have your slip knot here at the back, and then this is the loop of thread that you've just brought through from the back of the button. And as you can see, I have the rest of my thread here, which is going through the back of the button through to the front. So now I'm just going to yarn over with that thread, like so. And now we have 3 loops on the button. Now that yarn over thread, I'm going to take through my first loop and my slip knot, or my slip stitch. And I'm letting it sit on the top of my button, like so. And that is all you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. So it's a bit tricky to hold. I'm going to take my hook, and I'm letting my yarn increase the size of my slip stitch. I'm going to go into the button using the slack that I've just created, into my button, pick up my thread from the back and pull it through. Now this is the thread. Can you see the thread coming through? Now my slip knot is here, or my stitch is here, and what you're doing now is you're going to work these backwards and forwards, tightening up your thread at the back. Now if you're a crocheter, you will know that it's easy to do that, because this loop that you have here, this stitch, is a slip knot, and it will loosen and tighten depending on the tension of your thread that is running through, or your crochet thread that's running through your back fingers. Okay, so you've tightened it up again so that you now have your slip knot or slip stitch and the thread that you've brought through. Again, pick up a thread from the back, so you're yarning over from the back. You have 3 loops on your hook, and you're going through the first and the second, like so, and then just work your stitch a little bit to tighten it up. Okay, let's do that again. Create a bit of a loop, and because my button is so big, I'm having to create a big loop here every time, so that it will make the distance down to the hole for me to be able to put my needle through there. If you've got a smaller button, then obviously this is going to be smaller, but I'm just allowing the thread at the, whoops-a-daisy, let me just get that back again. I'm just allowing the thread at the back here that I'm holding between my fingers to play and tighten up as I'm making that stitch bigger or smaller. Okay, so I'm about to go through again, so I'm making my stitch a little bit bigger, going down through my hole, poking it through the other side like so, catching a thread and pulling it through. Okay, and then I'm taking it up to the edge of my button here, and then I'm just working it gently backwards and forwards. If you can see my finger moving at the back there, tightening up my thread as I go. I'm just tightening that up a little bit, and then when I've got everything nice and tight on top, well, not too tight but comfortable on the top of my button for these 2 loops, then I'm yarning over, and then I'm taking my yarn through those 2 stitches. Okay, so here we go again. making my stitch bigger, through my hole, picking up my thread on the other side, coming back, just playing with my stitches a little bit, or my tension a little bit, just to tighten it up a little bit. Sometimes you have to adjust your fingers if you end up with too much thread. And I've yarned over again. I didn't even know I'd done that actually, it happened automatically. So I've pulled my thread through, sorted out my tension again, yarned over through my first loop, through my second loop to create another stitch. And I think you should be able to see on the top there my stitches coming into place. They look like chain stitches there. Okay, so here we go again, just moving my stitches along. So here we go again, lengthening that stitch down through the hole, pick up my thread from the back, sorting out my tension as I go, yarn over from the back and through both, and just play with my tension again. Through my hole, pick up thread from the back, pull it through, whoops-a-daisy, play with my tension, tighten it up. Sometimes it wants to go a little bit easier than others. You get into a routine, it's actually harder doing this slower, everybody, than it is trying to do it quicker. It's a lot easier doing it quicker. Yarn over and through those two loops. And I'm going to go again, just tightening up my stitches before I go. So there we go, through, pick up, pull it through, work it again, and yarn over from the back and pull through, sort out my tension, and off we go again. Now, as I said before, given the size of the button we should be working with, you will probably find that you can do this about 6 times into your hole. Now obviously this is a much bigger button, so I would probably find that 6 is obviously not going to be enough, because let me loosen that off for you. There are my stitches along the top, and we've done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've done 7 stitches there, and that is nowhere near enough to cover the distance that I want to cover with these spokes. So I will probably end up doing something like 15, maybe even 20 stitches in that hole before I can move on to the next one. Now you will be able to gauge, because when your hole is getting full of thread, these threads just on this edge here will start lying on top of each other. You will not get a smooth look. These are all pretty splayed out, but if I do that, they're all sitting quite nicely there. Now if you've got too many stitches in there, they'll start bunching up on top of each other, and you won't be able to get a nice look. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few more stitches in here, and I'm going to show you how you transition from one hole onto the next hole. So I'm just going to try and very quickly put in a few more extra stitches and get to that point so that you can see how to do that transition. So I'm just trying to get some stitches done for you. Whoops, go through that one. Now it's going to take a lot longer than I thought, so if we can just imagine I've got enough stitches in this hole and we want to move on to the next one. It is incredibly easy, everybody. You really don't have to worry about it. All you do is loosen off your stitch as if you were going into the same hole as you've just been doing, but go into the next one. Pick up your thread from the back, pull it through, and just do your stitch same as before, like so. So again, loosen off your stitch, go through, pick up a thread, pull it through, and just keep working your stitches same as before. Now, if you don't tighten up your stitches after each stitch, you will get an elongated stitch like this. Whereas before, I was tightening up my stitches as I went and then moving on to the next stitch, and you get a much better finish along the edge of your button. Here, as you can see, I haven't been doing that. I've just been carrying on and not tightening them up, and you get these larger stitches in between each spoke, if you will. So you don't want that effect at all. So let me pull that back for you and show you again how it should be done correctly. So into your stitch, loosen it off. Now we're going to make the transition now. So down into your next hole, pick up your thread from the back, pull it through, and as before, work your stitch to tighten it up, like so, before you pick up and do your thread from the back, or your thread over from the back. So through two, and then tighten that stitch up. Now let it go loose, come down into your hole, pick up your thread from the back, take it up to the top and work it again to tighten it up before you thread over from the back, go through two and tighten your stitch up again. Okay, expand your stitch down through your hole, grab from the back and work your thread to tighten it up again. Now thread over from the back, work through two of those loops, so you've got a single loop, get it nice and tight on there, and then loosen it off again to go back down into your hole. Grab from the back again, tighten, yarn over from the back, through your two stitches again, tighten it up, and you get, as you can see, you get a much neater finish. Let me slacken that off again for you so you can see. You get a much neater finish along the edge of your button, like so. And you just keep on working round and round your button, and as I say, with the smaller size button we're using, you'll get 6 stitches quite comfortably in your hole before you've got to move on to another one and do one of those transitions. Here, as I say, I'm going to end up doing 15, maybe 20, maybe even more as I go round. I don't know until I get round there. But what you do when you get back to the beginning, so you've got all your threads coming up round this hole, you've gone all the way round, this hole is nice and full. All you do is do a slip stitch into your first stitch on this one to close up the gap to make your transition on this part. So I'll be back to you when I've gone all the way around this this button to show you how we go on from there. Okay everybody, so I have gone all the way round my massive button here, and as I said to you previously, for the size of buttons that I would recommend, you will probably find that 6 stitches is just about enough to go in each of your holes. As you can see here, I've done substantially more because of the size of my button. Now I have deliberately put too many stitches in this particular hole, and as you can see, they're all beginning to bunch up and overlap a little bit at the bottom. Now you might like that look, or you might want it more uniform like I've done on this side, or you might like it more splayed out like I've done on this side. But actually it really doesn't matter, because you might well be putting something in the centre to hide those spokes, as I've mentioned previously. As you're going round, your stitches should sit on the edge of your button. Now I'm just going to move that out. If they don't, just push them onto the edge of your button with your fingernail. They will go quite happily and they will move. How easily they move will depend actually on how tightly you crochet, but they will move quite happily and sit on the outside rim of your button like mine have. Okay, so that's what they're going to look like, and I'm just going to straighten up these last few as I come round. You don't have to do this, but it does make life easier when you come to do this next part. Okay, so I've got my loop there, and I'm just tightening up my thread and picking it up. Okay, so I have come all the way round here and I'm back to the start, and I treat this gap here the same as these for connecting my stitches together. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my very first stitch on the other side. Okay, I'm going to hold that up to the camera, hopefully you can see it. So here's my loop here from my last stitch, and this is the first stitch that I made when I started going round. Now I'm just going to do a single crochet, so I have my 2 loops on my hook, my last stitch and my first stitch when I went round, and I'm just going to yarn over and I'm going to pull it through that first stitch and then pull it through my other loop like so, and it looks like that, everybody. And if I flip it over, you can see my thread here from that first stitch. Okay, so if I move my hook, as you can see, I still have my movable stitch on my hook. Okay, so now you need to make a decision, because we're going to start crocheting round the outside edge and we are going to pick up each one of these stitches. Okay, so if let's just do this. If I show you this stitch here, this is where, let's see, this is a better one, where your gap is. If you look at your connector stitch, you can see, if I hold it up to the camera, it's 2 threads and they're like a chain, and you're picking up one of those for each of these stitches as you go round. Okay, now if you are going to do a single layer round the outside of your button, then you could get away with doing double crochets now. But I would suggest if you're going to do a double layer, i.e. a frill on the inside like this one, then your outside edge here, or the stitches that we're going to do around the outside edge, need to be triple stitches. And the reason for that is that you want that outside edge to be slightly wider than your frill in the middle. Okay, so let's get going. So we've got our stitch at the top, and to get the height for the first stitch you need to do 4 chains. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now I'm doing treble crochets, sometimes referred to as triple crochets. So you want 1, 2 yarns over your hook, and then you go into your first stitch on the top of your button. You yarn over and pull through, which means that you have 4 hoops or 4 stitches on your hook. You yarn over, you go through the first 2 of those stitches, yarn over, through the next 2, yarn over and through the next 2. Okay, so let's do that again. I'll do it a couple more times. So yarn over twice into your next stitch, yarn, pull your yarn through. All right, let me just pull your yarn through. So you've got 4 stitches on your crochet hook, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2 stitches, and yarn over again and through 2. So 1, 2, into your next stitch. Just having a little trouble pulling mine through because I'm such a tight crocheter. Through 2 again, and whoopsie daisy, haven't got that quite right. And the joy of crocheting is you can just pull it back. So 1, 2, through my next stitch, pick up my yarn, yarn over through 2, through 2 and through 2, yarn over twice into my next stitch, yarn over through 2 and 2 and 2. Okay, so that's what it's beginning to look like, as you can see there, just by picking up those stitches all the way round. Now you don't need to put in an extra stitch between each of your treble crochet if you keep the tension right. Now I'm a fairly tight crocheter, so I tend to find that I have to keep on checking what my tension is like as I go round. Now if you find that your tension is too tight, which I will find, what will happen is this will start curling in towards the centre of your button. And let me show you, this one is beginning to curl in, and in one of the tags that I showed you it was curled right in, and I wanted that one to happen because I wanted it to actually cup my button, if you will. Now that's not an issue, because what you can do when you get all the way around is you can pull your stitches and ease off that tension, and they will uncurl unless they are absolutely too tight. But what I would suggest is every couple of stitches, well, every maybe about 5-6 stitches, just check your tension and ease it off a little bit if you're finding it is curling in too much. Now, if it is still curling in way too much and you can't cure it, then what you can do is every now and then in between your trebles, like I've done here, before I go into my next stitch, is just do an extra chain and then do your 2 stitches, your 2 yarns over, and then go into your next stitch, and that will ease it off. But you shouldn't find you need that. So what I'm going to do now, everybody, is I'm going to crochet all the way around here and show you how to connect up when we meet up back there, and then we'll go on and do an edging round our button or around this first layer. Okay, so I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I've gone all the way around the outside of my button, as you can see, and I actually have given it a little bit of a tug just to make sure my stitches are going to fan out from my button nicely. I really did have to remind myself to keep my tension very loose on this button because it is very much a chunky monkey. Now I've left myself with just one last stitch left to do before I connect this up. So I'm just going to do that stitch, that last treble crochet stitch. So 2 yarn over into the hole, pick up a thread from the other side, yarn over, through 2, through another 2, like so, and through my last 2, and that's my last stitch. Now to join it up to my first stitch, all you do is you can either do a single crochet or you can do a slip stitch. Now I prefer to do a slip stitch, which all it is you go through, you pick up a thread from the other side. Sorry, when I say you go through your first stitch. So that's my first treble there. So I'm going into the gap with my hook, picking up a thread, bringing it through, and then I'm going through my hoop or my stitch. Okay, so I still have my movable loop on my hook. Now, you could leave your button exactly like this with this edge, and that could be the end of the story. And that's exactly what I did on this little one. But if you want to have a little bit of a decorative edge like I have on that one, can you see it's got a slightly pointy edge, whereas my button here, the ecru one, has got a straight edge. Now to get that effect, really simple. All you're doing is going between your treble crochet stitches. So you're going into the gap between each of your treble crochet stitch on the previous row. And as always with crochet, to get your height you need to do a couple of stitches. So I'm doing 2 chain. There's nothing to stop you if you prefer a more marked effect on the outside of your layer. There's nothing to stop you increasing those 2 crochet chains and adding a third or a fourth one in, but I like mine fairly small. So all I'm doing is 2 chain, and then all I'm doing is a single crochet stitch into each one of the gaps. So I've done my 2 chain, so back into my first gap, pick up my thread from the other side, which means I've got 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and through those 2 hoops. Okay, so again into my gap, and this is the same gap, pick up a thread from the other side, yarn over and through those 2 hoops, and then I do 2 chain before I move on to the next gap. So I've done my 2 chain, into the gap, pick up a thread and through 2 hoops, back into the same gap, pick up a thread from the other side, bring it through, yarn over and through those 2 hoops, 2 chain, and then I'm moving on to the next gap. Gap, pick up a thread, through 2, back into the same gap, and through 2, 1, whoops-a-daisy, 2 chain, and move on. So I'm just going to do a couple more whilst you're watching, if you've not nodded off already, and then I will show you what it looks like so that you can see the edge developing. Okay, so I'm desperately hoping I'm staying in frame here for everybody to see. I've kind of got my left arm anchored down to my mat because I know that if it stays still and stays there, then I'm going to be in frame, or that's what I'm hoping. That's kind of the theory I was working on this time, to desperately make sure I was in frame. So one more, and then I will show you how that edge has developed before I move on and go all the way round and show you how to finish off this edging. So here we go, my last 2 chains before I move on. There we go, everybody. So this is what I'm just going to take my hook out. These will still continue to want to curl in, but they will eventually settle down. So that is what my edge is beginning to look like. And as I said to you, if you want to increase the peaks or the points, just increase the number of chains you do between each of your single crochet stitches. So you could, these are 2, as I say, you could do 3 or 4, but always remember you do 2 chain and then 2 single crochet stitches, 2 chain, 2 single crochet stitches. So you're doing your 2 single crochet stitches in each of these gaps between the treble crochet stitches in your previous row. So I'm hoping that's still making sense to you and you're still managing to follow. As I say, I will finish that edge off and come back and show you how to connect up. And then if you want to go on and create a flounce on the inside, like this one, I will show you how to do that. Okay, back in one second. Hey everybody, so I've gone all the way round doing this edging on the treble stitches, and to join it together all I've done is another one of those little slip stitches. So now if you could leave your button exactly like that if you wanted to, and that's exactly what I've done on that little button, but if you want to take it further, you can do an extra flounce or 2 just by creating additional stitches in here. Now to do that, you are actually going to be anchoring your next line of stitches on the trebles themselves. Now that may sound hard, but it really isn't. So what you're going to be doing is we're going to be going in between the trebles and coming up on the other side. And as you can see on my hook there, I've captured one of the trebles by doing exactly that. I've gone down into a gap, gone behind it, and come up the other side like that. And that's literally all you're going to be doing to create your next line of stitches. You're going to be working round each one of these trebles. Now to start with, you have got to anchor your thread to one of the trebles to get you going. Now I always find that when I'm working in the round, which is what we're doing here, I always end up with one hole, my starting place, slightly bigger or having a bigger hole than the others, and you can probably see that's my starting hole there. It's only fractionally bigger, but to minimise the look of that, what I tend to do is either, when I'm starting a second row, I either move a couple of stitches to the left or a couple of stitches to the right. I don't work into that first hole, and that's what we're going to be doing now. So, as before, and as you always do when you start off, create your slip knot for your crochet hook. Okay, now the first stitch I'm going to be doing is, as I said, it's going to be that anchor stitch, that slip stitch to anchor our thread down. So I'm just going to choose any treble. So I'm going to go down the gap, up behind it and into the next hole. As you can see, I've trapped it. So all I've got on my hook is my slip knot and the treble that I've captured on my hook. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over and pull my thread through and behind my treble, and I'm going to pull that loop when I can do it. It always is, or for me, I always find it a little bit tricky doing slip stitches, so I'm going to pull it through behind, and it's because I work so tight. So I've pulled my yarn through behind. Now when I've pulled it through, you have 2 stitches on your hook. You have your slip knot and the thread that you've just pulled through, and you pull, I'm off camera here, and you pull one of those loops through the other. Yay, I've done it. Okay, so now my thread is anchored to one of the trebles. I'm not sure if you can see it. It is anchored there through one of the trebles. Now all you do is you just work your normal stitches. So we're working doubles. So as always, you want to create some height. So I'm doing 1, 2, I'm going to do 3 chain. And there we go. Try and stay in frame for you. Yarn over once because it's a double. So I'm now going into the first gap behind my treble again, pick up a thread, pull it through. So I now have 3 loops on my crochet hook, yarn over, making 4 through the first 2 stitches, yarn over through the next 2 stitches. Okay, so to create our next stitch, yarn over once, into the gap behind your treble, pick up a thread, pull it back and through behind your treble, yarn over through 2 and through 2. So next stitch, yarn over into the gap behind your treble, come up the other side, pick up a thread, pull it back, yarn over through 2 and through 2. And I'll just carry on doing a couple more of those. Hopefully you'll just be able to follow by watching what I'm doing. So yarn over once, into the gap behind your treble, pick up a thread, pull it back behind your treble, yarn over through 2, through 2. Once you get those pesky little slip stitches out of the way, life becomes so much easier because you can really rattle on with these other stitches. There's nothing to think about. You're just doing a plain double crochet stitch, and that's all you're doing. And again, it's really easy because you're working between the trebles of your previous row, so you've got big gaps to work in, so it's not hard at all once you get going. The tricky bit is just doing that slip stitch to get started, and then after that you're home and dry and you can just sit back, watch the telly or chat away as you go round this this part of the button. Really, really easy. So I'm going to stop here now and just finish off this stitch. so that I can just explain what's happening. So, okay, so as you can see, this is our first triple or treble stitch with the end edging, and then here, this bit here is our next layer. So if I turn it sideways, you can see this is our line of treble with the edging, and this little bit here is the bit that we are creating. And as I said before, we are anchoring that bit of stitching on our trebles. Now what you will find as you go round is that your anchoring will be up at the top here, just underneath where you've done your edging. So to get it to move down to here towards the edge of your button, all you need to do is hold your back treble row and just pull the row that you've just done of doubles just back down like so, and they will move down the trebles, so you don't have to worry about the fact that they're quite high up as you're going round. So you could just gently give them, well, not even gently, I'm giving this quite a yank to get it to go down, everybody. So there we go. As you can see, it's moved down quite a bit. Now if you were going to do a third flounce or a third line of stitching in there, you could actually leave this one higher up so that it gives you more space down here closer to the button on your trebles to get your next line of stitching in. But that again is entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do now, everybody, is same as before. I'm going to work this all the way round and come back to you when it's done. This is what it looks like now when I've gone round and done that second inner line of stitching with my doubles. And now again, as with everything we're doing, you could leave it just like that, or you could put another one of these pointy edges on it, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm now going to work round, and you're doing it exactly the same way as we did for the outside edge. So let me just get you started. So I would do my 2 chain and then my single crochet into my gap. So there's one, and there's my second, and then 2 chain into my next gap. And you're just working this front row, the one you've just finished, of the double crochets. That's all you're doing. You're just working those, everybody. And same as before, when you get round to the start, all you do then is connect it up with a slip stitch. So that's all I've done. I've gone all the way round doing my double crochet and then joined it up with a slip stitch. And as you saw, I did my 2 chain to get some height. Now I'm doing my 2 single crochets into each gap, like so, and then my 2 chain. And that will start giving you, if I can just move my crochet hook again, if I pull the back row out of place, that will start giving you your edge on this one as well. So this time I am going to work that edge all the way round, and then I've decided I'm going to put an extra layer in here so that I have 3 flounces on this one, and I will come back to you when I've done that. Okay, just very quickly before I carry on, I've done my second row and I've done my edging. So as you can see, that's what it looks like there. I've left my stitches high up in this on this second row. I've left them anchored quite high up on the trebles behind, or on the treble row behind, because I'm going to try and fit in another row in here with another lot of edging. So I will be back when I've done that, but I just wanted to let you see what it looks like when it's done and it's high up. And as I say, you could stop there and just work your second layer down closer towards your button if you wanted to, but I'm not, as I say. So I've just gone all the way round, and same as before, I've just connected the last bit of my edging to the front bit of my edging with a slip stitch. Okay, so I'll be back when I've done my inner row, and that will be our finished button then. Okay, so I've gone all the way round doing my third row, or my final flounce, and I have done this one slightly differently from the previous one. I'm just wrestling with it here because I want to put in my final slip stitch just to end this off, and I should have done this before, but there we go, I've done it now. And I'm just going to pull it through, and as you will see, I have a host of ends at the back here, and as I said before, I will thread these all through into the back of my work. Now, this internal flounce is slightly different. I just decided I wanted to do something different, so all I've done for this one, still anchoring it on those trebles all the way round, what I did this time is I did a single crochet on the treble itself, and then I did 3 chain, and then another single crochet on the next treble and 3 chain, just to give a slightly different ruffle. And I'm now going to just push all my flounces, or all my rows, down as far as I can get them to my button, just working my way round, because as I said before, when you're doing these and working on the first row, which is your treble row, they will all try, and however many rows you try to anchor on that treble row, they will all try and work their way up to the top. Now, I could technically carry on going round this button, doing more and more rows, because it's such a big button, but you probably, I'm only using this massive button so that I could show you better what I was doing, or try and show you a little bit clearer what I was doing. If you are using a smaller button, as you would in one of your projects, then I doubt whether you would actually get more than 3 rows in. This little one here, that's all I managed to get in, my three rows. I don't know, you might be lucky, you might be able to get a 4th one in if that's what you want. But as I said right at the start of this, you can stop at any stage. You don't have to carry on adding these flounces if you want to. You can stop just after you've done your first row of trebles. You don't need to edge that row. You certainly don't need to go on to the next row, which is your double crochet stitches. And again, you don't need to edge that row, and you certainly don't need to go on to the 3rd flounce. I mean, basically, you can do whatever you want. And as I've done here, you might decide that you actually want to do that kind of edging inside your row of trebles. Instead of doing double crochets like I did, you might decide you want to do a single crochet and 3 chain stitches, and do an inner flounce like that. There's lots and lots of options that you can choose. You certainly don't have to do what I did. Just go for your life, girls. Do whatever you fancy doing. Now, I've just kind of pulled my rows and my flounces down my trebles. It still needs a little bit more work, but you can see what's happening there. You're getting sight of the first row or the treble row behind, and it just gives you that little bit of interest. So if I tuck those threads out of sight, it might give you a bit of an idea of what your finished button is going to look like when you put it on your project. Now if I go in a little bit closer, does that help you a little bit? Let's do that. There we go. So that is our finished button, everybody. This one is super mega, but these are obviously a better size. And as I said before, you could put something in the center there if you don't like that effect. I mean, quite frankly, I could pop one of those in there if I wanted to, or it probably would look better with a bigger one in there, something like that. And that looks prettier. You could just put another button on top. You could put a piece of lace like I've done in the center there. You can just put a plain button and tie it with some thread. I've done that on one of my tags. So there's loads and loads of options of what you could do. Obviously this one is way too big for me to use on a project. I don't know, maybe I could use it on the front cover of a journal or something like that. But anyway, everybody, I just thought I would try and show you in much better detail and actually in focus, if I could manage it, what I was doing last time. So thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments below and I'll try and help as best I can. And I hope you were able to follow this video. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Take care. Bye-bye now.